Hey guys, Kriben Govender from the Gut Health Gurus podcast. I've got a background in food science, and today we have a fascinating guest for you, Joanne Kennedy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
My absolute pleasure. And at the start of the show, I'd like to get it straight from the horse's mouth. Who is Joanne Kennedy?
Okay, big question. Well, I'm a naturopath. I've been a naturopath now for 10 years. Prior to that, I worked in corporate and was never really sort of satisfied with my career in the corporate world. And sort of started studying kind of I mean, like when I was 32 when I started studying, I thought it was late and old then, but it's so not. And I did a Bachelor of Health Science, and then I went and worked at MTHFR Support, which is a clinic in Australia specialising in methylation. And I hit the ground running and learnt so much in my 2 years there. It was a really great stepping stone into the world of like functional medicine, methylation, histamine, etc. And then I started my own practice now about 7 years ago. So I specialize in histamine intolerance and all the things that cause histamine issues, which is many gut issues, right? So a lot of issues will cause issues with histamine. And then, it's very interesting the way that signs and symptoms of histamine intolerance can help us get to the root causes of why methylation is disrupted. So it's actually a really, really linked. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. Yeah, I love every minute of being a naturopath. So um, it's actually been a wild journey and very, very satisfying.
Wow, such an interesting story. So, if you don't mind me asking, what were you doing in the corporate world?
Um, I worked in many different industries. First worked as a PA in legal, and then I worked in marketing in legal. It sort of suited me. I'm very sort of left brain, so that was all good.
Hmm.
Then I thought I wanted to do something more creative. I went and worked in the wine industry and I worked in fashion, in marketing roles, and it was always a job for money.
Hmm.
It was never a passion. And the
Sure.
interesting thing, I'd always say to myself, before you turn 30, you need to start doing yoga. I don't know why. I just thought you have to do yoga so that you can be bendy, stretchy when you're old. And the first yoga class I went to was a really lovely girl from India. She was from Mumbai, living in Sydney. And it was at
Hmm.
her apartment. And she said to me, Joe, like you're just very highly strung and you just need to eat warm, nourishing, grounding foods rather than salads, you need to eat more like chickpeas and dal and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. She started talking to me more about this, and she was really talking about Ayurvedic medicine. And I became really interested in Ayurveda. At that time, I was studying yoga. And so I went to Nature Care College in Sydney, and they were doing a short Ayurvedic course, like 6 weeks. And I was so fortunate. They had a careers advisor lady who took me in and said, you can do this little course for 6 weeks, but to be an Ayurvedic practitioner, you've got to really um, go to India and study. And, what are you going to do with it? She's like, why don't you study Western nutritional medicine? And I just walked out of there, signed up to a 3-year degree. And I was like, I'm going to do this. So I went from not knowing within a couple of weeks to just completely changing my life. And after studying nutrition for a while, I sort of became really interested in herbal medicine and I swapped to naturopathy. And then it's sort of after, from studying, I got interested in methylation and did a lot of study on methylation when I was studying. I was really fortunate that when I graduated, MTHFR Support, which specializes in methylation, was looking for practitioners. And it was just a really great stepping stone for me to move. Yeah, so it was just it was a labor of love, to be honest. Um, yeah, lots of hard work, but a labor of love. Yeah.
It's fascinating. So it's very inspiring to listeners out there that you're in a particular career, but there's some examples to follow. And Joan being one of these great examples of being able to pivot quite late in your career. It takes a lot of guts, actually.
Thanks. You can pivot. I see people often ask me how I got into doing what I do. What was the magic thing? What was the process? And everyone's different. It's just following your passion and really going all in. It is, and I just think people are often asking me for like, I don't know, they just sort of want to like, they want to follow in my footsteps, but that doesn't work because it's your own journey. It's everyone's going to be different.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? It's just
Completely.
my journey was how it manifested for me. And when you're sort of an entrepreneur, everyone, it's different. I mean, I guess if you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor, there's a process. But when you're just going to set up your own business, it comes from it has to come from your heart.
Yep.
It does. And I know for me that like when my all my heart and energy is not in something, it doesn't pull off.
Hmm.
It doesn't. It has to be 100%. When it's 100% heart energy aligned, it works
Hmm.
because it's me.
Exactly.
It really is that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm a kindred spirit. So just very quickly, so myself, I started off in computer science. Then I almost finished my degree, and then I converted to food science, became a food scientist, worked my way through corporate as well, just like yourself. And around, let's say about in my 30s, that's when I kind of had a bit of a crisis, if you, I won't go into it, but had a
Yeah.
big meltdown, a big crisis. And out of that crisis came starting Nourish Me Organics and then also this podcast. So that very, very, so it's hard because you're leaving a safety net of a high paid corporate career to go and start from ground zero, like yourself, starting a degree. You got 3 years to finance it, keep your lifestyle, all that mortgages, all that kind of stuff. And then the other end, you're hoping that you can build some sort of career. So
Yeah, no,
kudos to
I know
you.
when I think back on it, I was like, oh my God. But it was just I do feel like I was divinely guided though. But that's all I can say. So I'm very grateful for that. Um, but yeah, look, I do say I look at my friends that didn't do it and are still stuck in corporate in their late 40s, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad I just jumped ship. I did something I'm
Exactly.
passionate about because I can just keep evolving, and you just keep evolving as a person. There's no limit to that. So
Completely. And
yeah,
I get friends reaching out to me quite frequently that want to make that move and asking for advice. I'm sure you get the same thing.
yeah. It just has to it has to come from deep within. It just has to be, it's almost like there's just no option. Like it's like this is what I need to do. It's a calling all in.
Hmm.
Like I gave up my entire life. My degree took me 5 years in the end.
Oh my
I
God.
gave up a lot. I gave up a lot, but I've now got a lot.
Mm.
That's the thing. And
Massive.
I've got freedom.
That's the key. Freedom with time, being on purpose, and living the life and shaping the life that you want, which is so
It,
important.
it's that is exactly what I'm most grateful for.
The time is like priceless, isn't
Yeah,
it?
time and freedom. I mean, I've just spent 2 months in France, which was amazing. So I can work from anywhere. So
Exactly.
it is priceless. So but however, that's not why I started. I was just fascinated by it. Loved the study, still do. Love the study. I love the days where I sit at home and research and write my courses. Like I love it. It's like meditative for me. I still
Amazing.
find it fascinating, and always will. So I think people, as Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, says, you just need to follow your curiosity. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to like find your life purpose. It's curiosity, and we all kind of know what we're really fascinated by. And often we
Hmm.
don't do, and sometimes we just don't do that one thing because we think, oh, what if we fail?
Hmm.
Like people off we did a psychology subject, and my teacher would say, so often people choose the second or third thing that they want to do because the first thing, what if you fail? Then what? Do you know what I mean? Like what, like then what, then what? So you just don't risk that number one thing. So I just think that's you got to be really true to yourself and work out what that one thing really is. I think most of us do know. We're just too scared to jump in.
Completely.
That's where the growth and the passion, and that's where the juice is.
Exactly. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of practitioners, like myself being a practitioner, yourself being a practitioner. There'll be, I'm certain, a huge portion of our audience are actually either practitioners or they're people who are studying, wanting to start a career in nutrition, naturopathy, functional medicine, all these natural health modalities. So tell us, Joanne, about that journey from completing your degree and then starting a practice. And how did you get your first client?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I rented a room in a clinic in the city of Sydney alongside an acupuncturist, lovely lady, and it was called Sydney Health and Wellness Centre. Now, this is actually important. It's called Sydney Health and Wellness Centre. So I remember my first day going into work with no patients, just to sort of like get my room set up, looking at all the corporates with their coffee and their toast, going, "Are you lucky you're going to your little office and you get paid?" So anyway, I just remember going in there. Anyway, one of the key things that actually happened, and I didn't even know that this is going to happen, is she allowed me to go onto her website and put my services on her website and write some blogs. And I wrote a blog on histamine intolerance. And just because of the way SEO works, because she had Sydney in her website, so it started to get a bit of traction, right? Because people were looking for treatment for histamine in Sydney.
Mm.
Not in Hornsby, not in like Potts Point in Bondi. People go Sydney. So when people are searching for a naturopath, 80, 90%, they'll say Sydney. They don't just say Manly or whatever, because they don't care. They're going to go, they'll travel to the best that they find, right? So that's actually one thing I learned. When a search engine is like, it will say Sydney or Melbourne. It's big cities, right? So I just did some blogs, and the thing on histamine and MTHFR methylation, very niche areas and very up and coming areas, and areas where people are really interested in getting support for. Okay, so MTHFR is something, I mean, it actually really doesn't really mean anything on its own, but people are very interested in it. So I know that. And so I just go with that whole MTHFR thing, blogs on histamine. And I just remember, I remember sitting at having lunch with a girlfriend I used to work with, and I had Clinico at that time. It sent me a text message that I've got a patient book in. And
Wow.
I remember just going like, oh my God. And so she booked in, and I went in the next day. Well, that was like the next day. It was like at midday. And I woke up that next morning and someone had booked in at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh my God, people are starting to book in. And it went from 1 to 2 to 3. And it's just, I do feel divinely guided. I just had such lovely patients back then. I had this one lady, Shona. She came to see me every 2 weeks. She sent her husband to me. She sent all her kids to me. She sent her friends to me. So just like word of mouth, right? And it just started to build and build. And then I sort of hit, I got onto, I just did. I remember I didn't even know what like Instagram, I didn't even really understand what it was, right? It's like people put pictures on there. I didn't really get it. So I'm like, right, I'm going to make myself do Instagram. And you just do your first video and you feel like an idiot. But I said to myself, get over yourself. Just people need people need your help. So I just did my first Instagram video and some Instagram posts. And then that just sort of, you don't really get many people originally if you like on, you got to build up that social trust.
Mm-hmm.
Did that. And then things just ticked over, and I was just sort of growing organically. And then I got to Google my business page and started getting Google reviews. That's really important. Google reviews. And the other thing with Google My Business is because I'm a Sydney-based practice, right? So it helps people find you. This is the thing. If you just set up your clinic in like a suburb of a big city and do that, people aren't searching for that suburb, really. Does that make sense? It's really important for
Completely.
people to get that. So if you really want to
Mm-hmm.
set up a business, you go into Melbourne or you go into Brisbane or Perth or Sydney. You got to go into the actual CBD that helps with search engine, if you can. And then, yeah, I just one of the other things that I did with it, I ended up moving from that clinic to another. It's called WellShare. It's like it's like a big hub for wellness practitioners. And Anthony, super smart guy. He used to be a doctor. He's really good at marketing. he just sat me down and we went through my website. And he's like, Jo, why don't you have your Google reviews linked to your website? I'm like, I didn't even know you could. Right. So I got all my Google reviews linked to my website. And then I've just started doing that. So Google reviews are essential for business growth. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
if anyone's doing that, you've got to really push the reviews. And I was fortunate that I was exposed. I remember my boss said to me, you're going to unlearn everything you've learned at college. And I completely did. And it's true. I've got a practitioner course because that I train other practitioners. And I do say to them, like, we just forget what you learn at uni because this is what's going on with functional medicine. Right. So I was fortunate to have great mentoring and I learned so much in 2 years that I knew that I had something, I knew that I could help people and I knew that I was good at what I was doing and so it was that inbuilt confidence is there. So it's just that you got to put the work in. I really worked hard, and that's my advice to anyone, like I worked harder than anyone else at uni. I put more work in. I did so much extra study on the side around SIBO and methylation and all, I just sort of studied a lot on the side. And it was that they say, isn't it preparation, luck is preparation meets, what is it? I don't know what they say about luck. It's not luck,
Oh,
it's preparation. Yeah.
yes, I hear what you're saying because you were completely prepared that the luck follows you.
Yes. So you're just completely prepared. So it's just you just got to put the work in, trust yourself. Um, and I just think advice to anyone starting out, the thing with our industry is there's so much need for what we do.
Completely.
There's
100%.
so much need for it. So, but you do have to be, if you're not good at marketing, you have to get good at it. If you're not
Yeah.
good at business, you have to get good at it. You cannot just think that, oh, I'll just do my degree and then do a website and you got to get good at it.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
hear you.
overwhelming and it can be scary and overwhelming. You got to put yourself out there, but you are helping, you've got something to say. So I said to my students, it's like you have so much knowledge. Even when you first graduate, people don't know anything people just don't know what they're doing is bad for their health. And so you've like even when you first graduate, you have so much to offer. And also, other advice is, my patients that stayed with me the longest were my first patients because I was so empathetic
Mm,
and so nurturing and so caring. And that's gold. Like that's what people want. Yes, you need to help them, but my knowledge was nothing compared to what it was now. But it's that extra care. So when you're first starting out, you've got more time, you've got lots of patients, not many, don't have many patients. You can just build such a beautiful rapport with those people and help them. And
hmm
it can grow organically. So I always say that to my students, you don't need to think that you don't know anything because you really do. And your intention on helping someone that's what people really need that. Yeah.
Completely. That's amazing advice. It's a nice timeline of how to start a practice from studying all the way to getting your first customers and then attracting more customers by providing value, help, putting
Yeah.
yourself out there. That's a beautiful summary. So, how about what are the issues that people come to you the most when it comes to health concerns, particularly digestive concerns, because we're really focused on digestive concerns on this podcast?
Yeah. There's a lot of SIBO, well, a lot of IBS diagnosis. Well, what's that? It's usually SIBO. It's 80% of IBS is SIBO. So people will come to me with, from a symptom picture, it will be reflux and heartburn, bloating, indigestion, multiple food intolerances, constipation, diarrhea, right? And so, in my mind, I've got a process of elimination. Is it gluten? Like seriously, like so often it can be gluten. Is it SIBO? Right? So, we always test for SIBO, but SIBO is a major cause of high histamine. Right? So when people have a lot of histamine in the small bowel and a lot of inflammation, it really, really releases a lot of histamine. And interesting enough, in so many cases, histamine is causing heartburn because it increases hydrochloric acid, but just not at the right time, right? So a lot of SIBO, and then we see a lot of mold and oxalate.
Mm.
You know,
Oxalates.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just so common. So mold contains oxalate, right? So if people are not sure about oxalates are tiny, sharp little crystals. Um, they um, they can deposit in the gut. They can get into your joints, into the bladder, they can get into the lymph. They can even get into the thyroid, into the brain. They cause havoc. They cause a lot of pain, inflammation, major cause of fibromyalgia, major cause of interstitial cystitis, cause a lot of pain, inflammation, a lot of histamine being released. They're super common because when the gut microbiome is dysbiotic, right, when don't have enough beneficial bacteria, you can't break down your oxalate from the diet because humans lack the enzymes to break down oxalate. We need the bacteria. So if you've
Mm-hmm.
got dysbiosis, you can get an oxalate problem. Mold, a lot of the mold species actually contain oxalate. And then we've just got people that go, I am going to go on a health kick. So I'm going to have spinach smoothie. I'm going to juice spinach every day, super high in oxalate, right? And then we also have people going more like keto or paleo, and they're eating a lot more nuts. And nuts are super high in oxalate. So people go on a health kick and potentially not have people often go on a health kick for their gut because their gut's not good, so they don't have a good microbiome, and they have all these oxalate foods, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes it worse and worse and worse. And they don't know what's going on because it's not very well known. It's super common. It's not very well known, and they don't understand why they're getting worse and worse and worse in their symptoms from these plant foods, these healthy plant foods, right? So this is the problem that we see is people will be eating more and more plant foods to be healthy, but they feed SIBO. They're high in histamine, they're high in oxalate, and they're getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and they don't understand why. So we see a lot of people who have chronic gut issues have had the wrong advice from practitioners or that they've read, and then they try and fix their own gut with healthy foods or fermented food, like say, so fermented things, super high histamine. And they're just getting worse and worse and worse. And I'll just be honest, some practitioners, they don't understand. They're like more fermented foods, more fermented foods, more fiber, and they're going back to the practitioner way worse, and they say just keep going. But it's we now know that, you know, when someone has a gut issue and inflammation in their gut, they're very likely to have a histamine issue. So these fermented foods are just not going to help them at that
So
time.
because histamine is a normal metabolite produced in the gut. So how does histamine become problematic for someone?
Yeah. So it's a simple thing. If you're making too much histamine, if you're making more histamine than your body's ability to break it down, right? This is simple. There's many causes of high histamine, but there is really one enzyme in the gut. It's called the DAO enzyme, diamine oxidase enzyme, and it will deal from the histamine being produced from the bad bacteria in the gut, right? And the oxalates. And that same enzyme breaks down histamine in food. So often people will find me after Googling why they're reacting to tomato and avocado and citrus and why they react to high histamine foods, because that they can understand that. They're like, wow, like I'm getting hives from strawberries, or I'm getting really bad eczema can be a histamine symptom like from these foods. So they'll work it out and then they'll find me, right? So it's like, and then we have to understand it's histamine's a symptom of an underlying cause. So
Gotcha.
there's really like 15 major causes of why you can have high histamine. So we work through what those causes are for each person.
Hmm. So correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is that the SIBO, so having the dysbiosis in the gut, is impeding the ability of histamine to be broken down. But once the dysbiosis is addressed, then the histamine metabolism normalizes.
Yeah, with SIBO, it's the bacteria convert the FODMAPs into gas, Gas will cause well, it causes pain and swelling. We call it bloating in the gut, don't we? It causes inflammation. Okay, so inflammation is going to cause the cells of the gut. It's not just mast cells, actually. There's other cells like smooth muscle cell that will release histamine. At the same time, the DAO enzyme, which is highly concentrated in the small intestine, when there's inflammation in the small intestine, the sort of the synthesis and excretion of the DAO can be reduced as well, right? So the net result is more histamine. And, you know, with SIBO, it's also such a digestive enzyme problem and a constipation problem, right? So you could also be having more, you know, a worse time with histamine with SIBO if you've got low hydrochloric acid, low, you know, low pancreatic enzymes, which are really common. So you're not breaking down your food properly. You know, if you're not breaking down your animal protein properly, it sits, rots, ferments. It's going to increase histamine. And then when there's constipation, obviously you're just building up bacteria, undigested food. It's going to cause more histamine, right? So it's top to tail, isn't it? So, but SIBO is a massive cause of high histamine. I actually don't, there is so much research on large bowel dysbiosis. There's a lot of histamine producing bacteria in the large bowel, but I promise you this, clinically, it's not that relevant. Right. So I see this often. People have got, oh, you've got a histamine issue. They do a stool test and they try and just get rid of like Klebsiella, Citrobacter, quite high histamine producing, try and balance that out. Doesn't correlate with good clinical outcomes. It's 99% of the time, it's something else. Something else. They have SIBO, they've got constipation, they've got digestive enzyme insufficiency, mold, oxalates, and estrogen causes big problems with histamine. So the research is there that the large bowel bacteria can produce histamine, but really never do I actually see it. Just focusing on that doesn't correlate with a fixing. So it's really not a major cause. It's usually something else.
Gotcha. So with SIBO, so what's the treatment paradigms that you follow? So the obvious one would be low FODMAPs, some sort of elimination, but is there any other steps that you would take for a person?
Yes. I do in most of my patients, unless I'm convinced that they don't have a histamine issue, right? So I'll go through the gut and I'll just be like, I'll ask them questions about histamine as well. Like, is it reflux and heartburn? Are you getting headaches, migraines, skin issues, insomnia, anxiety, women's hormones? It just makes PMS way worse. So I go through the symptoms. And if I think they've got a histamine issue too, I get them on a SIBO low histamine diet. And it's beautiful. It calms everything down really fast, like within a week, 2 weeks. So I get them onto that. And then, you know, I'm just such an advocate of hydrochloric acid. I mean, it's antimicrobial. Like we need it so much. And everyone's stressed. SIBO, stress causes SIBO. So it's like massive, right? So I get and if you give HCl before you get the histamines down, it can cause burning. So that diet gets all that inflammation, histamine down, and then you can go in with hydrochloric acid. You know, hydrochloric acid, pancreatic enzymes, it's really helpful for getting the digestion moving. And I'm really focused on bowels. Like your bowels have to be daily formed complete. Like otherwise SIBO will not move. Right?
What's a SIBO diet?
So it's low FODMAP
Mm-hmm.
and low FODMAP, low resistant starch.
Mm-hmm.
And then so there's some people that don't have a histamine issue. I'm like, God, I can't believe you don't have histamine problems that they don't. But then if they've layered histamine, they need to remove histamine for a while.
Gotcha. So it's allowing the gut to normalize, and then you can start to include these foods back in.
Yes. Yeah. When we're going with herbal medicine to make sure that we kill off the bacteria, address the biofilm, address the stress. Honestly, the more I work as a
Yes.
naturopath, I half the time I sit there working out where's your stress coming from, where's the trauma coming from, where's the
Mm-hmm.
stress coming from, right? So that needs to be addressed. It really does. Yeah, and then it's just a process. It takes about 3 months to clear SIBO. And it's not easy. The diet's not easy. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
However, if someone's feeling that unwell, you can feel great during the process.
Gotcha.
You
It's,
really can't be going out for dinner all the time and things like that. But if you just focus on it, you're actually going to feel good, right? Get your energy back, your motivation back, your sleep better, everything's going to be better. And it's like a 3-month process, and we always retest and make sure it's gone.
mhm. And in terms of the antimicrobials that you use for SIBO, so because you've got the mold issues that you mentioned, and then
Mm.
you've also got the SIBO. So what treatment paradigms are you applying there?
Yeah. Okay, when it comes to order of things, mold is always the first thing that needs to be addressed. These people are sick. I mean, they're so sick, right? They've often got an oxalate problem as well. So the order of priority really is you need to deal with mold and oxalate before SIBO most of the time. Okay, just we find that because the diet's just so restrictive, doing low histamine, low oxalate, like it's just really hard. Mold disrupts bile, bile synthesis and excretion, right, which is a major problem with SIBO, right? So that really needs to be addressed first. But I'm really simple with my herbs for SIBO. Allicin for methane,
Mm-hmm.
berberine for hydrogen, and oregano works on both. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that's 90% of patients that's all we need. Like it just doesn't have to be harder than that. And I don't.
Alison being garlic, yeah?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So active constituent of garlic, it works beautifully, and so does berberine. So I'm really simple with that. I don't sort of add in more herbs. The one that's stubborn is when you've just got high methane. So some people will have high hydrogen, and hydrogen will convert to methane. So you've got high hydrogen and some methane. That's easier to get down. When it's just full methane, that's more stubborn. And then you can go in with some other herbs, neem or nigella. I think pomegranate helps too. A Trantil is a commercial product for that. You might need some more specific herbs for methane, just for methane producers. We find it takes longer to get rid of just methane SIBO. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're applying the antimicrobials, then you're coming in with some sort of enzymes. So you're
Yeah.
using enzymes to help the digestion, and then you've got the hydrochloric acid as
Yeah.
well.
I usually just use a combination of hydrochloric acid, pancreatic enzymes
Gotcha.
together. Yeah, it just helps. I find a classic sign of digestive enzyme insufficiency, particularly HCl, is actually, well, it is reflux and heartburn, but it is also incomplete emptying of the bowels. I really find that that's a real correlation. And so if that's happening, getting the digestive enzymes in could be really, really helpful. Yeah, so it's just, and then as I said, getting bowels moving, like you have to really focus on that with your patients. Like if someone's really constipated, I will make sure I see them within 2 weeks, and I will just keep at it until we get it moving. I
Gotcha.
also I also prescribe that Nerva app as a lot too, for the hypnotherapy app for
Oh,
bowels.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so much of it is stress related
Completely.
as well. So that can really, really help. But you just cannot, as a practitioner, let your gut patients stay constipated and give them all those herbs and break down all the bacteria. It's going to have massive die-off symptoms, and it's not going to go anywhere. So you need to check on them and make sure that their bowels are really moving. And even if you don't feel comfortable seeing them again and charging them again, you just get them to email you and work that out. It's case by case.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If I'm pretty clear, I'm pretty sure what I'm going to give them will work. I'll just say, just drop me an email in 2 weeks. Let me know your bowels are good. Like they have to be complete, emptying, formed, blah, blah, blah. They're like, yep, it's all good. Then they're on their way. But they're not on the starting gate until their bowels are moving.
How about PPIs? Because a lot of people will be using PPIs at this stage as well.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
I have found that you get them on a SIBO low histamine diet and they will just come off their PPIs. They just stop. Really. Like it's like magic. Like not
Mm-hmm.
seriously. The girls that worked for me when they first started, like, oh my God, I can't believe this diet. Like it's really, really helpful. Right. So it just comes down, like you stop producing hydrochloric acid at the wrong time. And then they can wean off it. And then you get them on hydrochloric acid. I find that it just can help a lot of the time. Yeah, but
Perhaps it's,
it's a disaster. PPIs they're really bad.
yeah, they're making the problem worse in many ways.
Way worse. And then they have B12 deficiency and, the whole thing with histamine. Well, the whole thing with methylation is some of the major things people are doing are reducing a lot of things that are common in patients that we see, PPIs, stress, not eating enough animal protein, eating on the run, not chewing your food properly, they end up with low methyl donors, like B12 and methionine in particular, so important for methylation.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so then, and then methylation breaks down histamine, it breaks down histamine everywhere in the body, but it's the DAO enzyme's absent in the central nervous system. So it's methylation that's dealing with the neurological histamine stuff, right? So
Gotcha.
starting with PPI, low HCl, you're just going to get gut issues, you'll get histamine issues, end up with B12 deficiency, methionine deficiency. So you're completely undermethylated as well. So there really are drugs that you really shouldn't be taking unless there's no other option. But they're just given out like candy. But they are problematic.
Are there any other drugs that people should be watching out for? And then straight away we'll jump into more the methylation story.
Um, from a gut look, I think it's the antihistamines. You know, the problem with antihistamines is that they down-regulate DAO enzyme activity over time. And lo and behold, your histamine issue that you're trying to treat with an antihistamine will morph as something else. It just changes because we've got all these different histamine receptors. Yeah, so I think antihistamines. Look, there are some cases where it's when people just have that chronic itching and skin issues are hard. They're hard, and so much of it's stress related. So when people are addicted to these antihistamines for itchy skin, it's really hard to bring them off it. But you can often dampen down that hyperactive immune response. The diet can actually really help a lot. They can try taking DAO enzyme. You can supplement with DAO enzyme, okay, whilst you're addressing the cause. But yeah, antihistamines are something that people just take every day. And then they end up with, like for allergies, and then they end up reducing their DAO enzyme and not being able to deal with the histamine in the gut. And so
Mm,
they end up with worse other symptoms.
gotcha. So how about we explain the methylation story a little bit more? Because that's one of the areas of expertise, and it seems to dovetail into the histamine story as well.
It does. So the major causes of high histamine also are the major causes of disrupted methylation, right? So for instance, some of the major causes of high histamine are going to be taking PPIs, having digestive enzyme insufficiency, having SIBO, right? We'll just start with the upper gut, right? Having pancreatic enzyme insufficiency. Those things can cause a reduction in your vitamin B12, your folate, and methionine. Those are really essential nutrients for methylation. Okay. Now, the other really interesting thing is that oxalates in particular will reduce homocysteine in the body. Now, this is a bit complicated, but homocysteine is got two roles. It's involved in the creation of SAMe, which is your methyl donor for methylation, and it's also a storage molecule for sulfur. Okay, so the methylation, like there's two of the pathways that make up methylation are what's called methionine pathway. Methionine pathway makes SAMe, and then you've got the transsulfuration pathway. So it's a sulfur pathway. And homocysteine sits kind of in the middle of those pathways. And so as a storage molecule for sulfur, it's required to give sulfur to this sulfation pathway, which is needed to make glutathione. I mean, it's many other things, and it's required for the sulfation liver detoxification pathway. It's a big pathway. And what will reduce homocysteine levels is oxalate, big time, because oxalates cause what we call sulfur wasting. It's complicated, but how I explain it to my patients is oxalates and sulfur share the same transport train. And then if there's too many oxalates, they jump on that transport train, and there's
Mm,
nowhere for sulfur to go. There's no spots. And so sulfur gets eliminated in urine. So the body's desperate for sulfur. So important. So one place it can get it from is from homocysteine. So you'll see a test and your homocysteine levels are low at like 3 or 4. That's such an important test. It's gold to me. Like, it's just, if I see people send me 1,000 tests, I'll look for that first. and then I'll look to see if they've got an oxalate problem, right? So the low homocysteine also causes problems with the creation of SAMe, right? So if you don't have enough homocysteine, you're not making enough SAMe. And then if you've got low homocysteine, it's like, oh, wow, like you've got a big problem with sulfur. And what is driving that? It's usually oxalate. And then mold can be involved as well.
Gotcha.
Right. And oxalates drive up histamine in a really big way. And well, mold can cause mast cell activation syndrome. So that is just a histamine storm. I mean, it's a cytokine storm, but it's histamine is a lot of, histamine's so funny because there's all these other inflammatory mediators that cause pain and swelling, I guess, but histamine has such specific symptoms and is what people will, it's usually the symptoms people are struggling with so much is the fact that the histamines are so high. Does that make sense?
Completely. And in terms of the methylation, is it also a genetic kind of factor as well, isn't it?
Yeah. There are genes that impact methylation, but we always need to look for the environment first. Epigenetics. I'm not a big fan of genetic reports. I think that they, for many reasons, they're not going to give you the answers to why you've got an issue. There's a lot of information, it's overkill on information. A lot of the information that is given at the end of the report is contraindicated in what that person is actually suffering from. Methyl donors, like taking SAMe or methylfolate, can cause massive side effects. So serious anxiety, depression, psychosis, chronic insomnia, suicidal thoughts, really, really serious things. And people do these genetic reports and they're said, oh, if they've got MTHFR, you need to take, up to some of it's high dose, like 1,000 milligrams of methylfolate a day, right? If someone's got high histamine levels and that pushes methylation, it can cause huge side effects. So people do these gene reports and they try and supplement from a gene, but it's not what's actually right for them. You're better off spending your money on functional medicine tests than the genetic stuff because it can cause a lot of confusion. And it doesn't tell you what is the root cause of your actual problem. Does it make sense? Yeah, it really doesn't. And clinically, it can add, people are interested in talking to me about their gene reports, but once I sort of discuss it with them, I'm like, this is what's going on with you in real time. This is what we need to focus on. And usually they've done the gene report and taken a supplement recommended, and if they've had an adverse reaction to it, right? So they're often saying you need to supplement with cofactors. The gene reports people are doing are from Stratogene or whatever, these are genes that code for enzymes. Enzymes have cofactors. So they often say, take copper, take iron, take magnesium, take methylfolate, take SAMe, take these supplements for an enzyme function. But it's like, but that's what is causing this disruption. What are the environmental factors that are causing the disruption? And they need to be addressed. And then the relevant diet, lifestyle supplementation is used for that.
How does a functional test pick up a methylation issue?
Well, you got to know what you're looking for. So if I do a functional medicine test, say an organic acids test, and I will see low oxalate, I will see high oxalate, right? And then I will see some mold markers, glutathione deficiency. I'll be like, interesting. I wonder what your homocysteine levels are. I bet they're low, right? Sometimes they're just not, right? Or if you've got, if someone's got SIBO, digestive issues, they've got signs and symptoms of B12 deficiency, like tingling and numbness, just a classic sign. You've got low B12, like you're most likely not methylating well. So, it's just nuanced, and it's understanding it's understanding the signs and symptoms that can be causing issues with the malabsorption of your methyl donors and what in the environment is disrupting methylation. So that's what I teach people in my course. It's like you can't, methylation, you just put it in your back, you understand it, it's in the background of your mind, and it helps you navigate priorities for your patients. But you don't fix methylation. You fix the drivers of what's disrupting these pathways. Because I've seen so many people come to me all the time when they've tried to fix methylation with methyl supplements and they get stuck in over methylation reactions and they're really bad and they can't come out of it. I've seen it. So I'm really cautious with it. You can do these methylation tests. I mean, I see a lot of it from the US, but you really have to just work through with the patient, like, why is this out? I had a lady the other day and she had really low homocysteine. And I was like, well, she just didn't have mold issues. She didn't have oxalate issues. But what we've got to understand about homocysteine is it is actually made from methionine. So you need to be consuming methionine. Okay, so it's really, animal proteins are a very good source of methionine. So if you do not eat enough animal protein, if you're not absorbing it, you can have low homocysteine because of that. But homocysteine is also providing the body with sulfur. This lady decided to stop eating red meat and for some reason stop eating brassicas. And brassicas are really high in sulfur. I don't know why she did that. And we looked at her test and her homocysteine was low. And that was nuanced. That was something I'd never seen before. But I sat with her for an hour trying to work out why. And that was why. Right? So look, I'm biased, I know, but you got to work with a practitioner that understands the causes of disrupted methylation and not just say, I'm going to fix your methylation. Here's SAMe, here's methylfolate, because it's not going to do anything. It's not going to fix you. It can make you feel worse. Sometimes people feel a bit better for a bit, it can help lift people a little bit, but it's not fixing the root cause.
I hear you. I mean, the body's biochemistry is extremely complex. So I think we try to put these things into tiny little boxes and then focus on it to improve it. But there's all these other things happening at the same time. There's epigenetics, environmental factors, mental health, stress. So
it's that. So it's totally that. It's kind of a framework it's a framework of how I work and how I teach my students, and I like it. It suits me. But I'm just day to day, I'm fixing people's guts, getting them sleeping, getting them meditating, yoga, whatever. I use Irene Lyons, a somatic practitioner. She's online, American lady. I bring so many people to do her courses. So all that lifestyle stuff, balancing hormones, just doing everything normal naturopaths do, but with this sort of framework in my mind that really helps me get to the really not miss a mold problem, not miss an oxalate problem, because these people are very sick. Right. So it's just about seeing with the thing with when you're looking at the methylation testing, it can just really pinpoint your focus on this is a big problem. And what do? We go and do organic acids testing. We work out if there's an oxalate problem. Sometimes it's so obvious you don't need to test, right? Or mold, right? This is a big mold issue. We need to start there. So because of the way that those things disrupt methylation so much, it's like an alarm bell. It's like, wow, this is your issue. And it's, for me, it gives me reassurance when I'm speaking to someone very, very sick around this is, I'm 99% sure that this is your problem. And then I'm confident to send them off for sometimes expensive testing because I know that it's that. Does that make sense? So it gives me, working with it provides me with confidence around directing what the next steps are. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I think at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. So if you're going through this almost detective style of work to get to the root causes of these issues, and then the customer comes out the other side better, then you've built some data and a framework to deal with other customers as well. So you're looking for that sort of pattern recognition. So that's a great approach. I think one thing I forgot to ask a bit earlier, and I'd be remiss to forget about it, was the mold. So in terms of mold, I see a lot of mold issues as well. So in terms of products that you're using, like supplements for mold clearing? Are you using binders or anything else you recommend that people look at?
Yeah. Just to let you know, I'm like the mold whisperer. I just pick it up, right? But I don't treat.
Yeah, right.
I not really. My colleague Melanie well, she had mold illness herself and oxalate problems herself, right? So she was a patient of mine, but she had SIBO, she didn't get better. And then I sent her to a mold practitioner, lo and behold, mold, right? So she's just specializes in it. I'm really lucky. So I can smell it a mile off. Impatient, like I just know. And it's like that's what I do a lot. And I get them to send milk. So I will say, but we are using the binders, we're using our GI Detox. Can I talk about brands?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. It's fine.
I don't know what's in them. Like there's all those binders. So it's Biocide and GI Detox. We're using a lot of
Hmm.
it. Research Nutritionals do
Hmm.
MyCoPal.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I use. Yep.
yeah. So I'm not, I just haven't dealt with mold properly. I don't treat mold. Mel does. However, one thing I can talk about is MARCoNS. Yeah. So, MARCoNS. So for
No,
your,
explain to
okay.
me. I've never heard of it.
Okay. MARCoNS are multiple antibiotic resistance staphylococci.
Oh, right. Okay.
Negative.
Hmm.
Negative. Now, so it's bacterial overgrowth in the nose. Like, well, whatever. Okay. Well, the thing is that in 80% of patients with MARCoNS, it's due to mold, mycotoxins, reducing the protective mucosal layer in the nose, allowing MARCoNS to grow.
Mm.
And MARCoNS cause havoc with histamine.
Mm.
So when anyone has neurological histamine issues, headaches, migraines, vertigo, dizziness, inability to regulate your body temperature, which is actually a neurological issue, motion sickness, nausea, anxiety, insomnia, right? And even if, like, do you have sinus issues? They're like, oh, yeah, it's a bit blocked. And my doctor said I need surgery. It's like anything with the nose, don't ignore it. It could be MARCoNS. So,
Mm.
so often we're testing and people have MARCoNS, and you can also add on the fungal culture, the mold culture, and see. Right. So often people are getting neurological histamine issues from having MARCoNS in the nose.
How do
It's just
you how do you get rid of that?
we use a nasal spray. It's actually pretty simple. It's just got like xylitol breaks down the biofilm,
Hmm.
iodine, colloidal silver, and sea salt. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really great. So that's what I do. I am doing a lot of MARCoNS testing, and because of the signs and symptoms are so obvious to me, the test is easy. And I'm like, if you've got mold in your nose, like you've had mold, where's it in your gut? Where else is it, right? So it's an easy
Hmm.
test for people to do, and the efficacy of that nasal spray is so good. And I don't know how this works. I mean, you tell me, it's just bugs are amazing. Like people will say, they still get headaches, and I had this one guy. This is when I started doing it. He fixes air conditionings, and he had migraines all the time, but he'd only get them when he ate histamine foods. But he had sinus issues. And I'm like, okay, let's just like look at the MARCoNS. And so he had full of MARCoNS. He'd take the nasal spray, and he didn't eat histamine foods for like, I don't know, a month, and no migraine. And then he started to eat histamine foods again, and didn't get the migraine when he was taking the spray. But it's just interesting to me how he was getting migraines from the foods, but they were it was from the nose. The bugs talk to each other, don't they?
Of course.
And they
Foreign
do,
sensing. Yeah, they do. They literally do.
yeah, they communicate. So we used to always think, oh, look, it's gut-brain axis and the gut microbiome increasing histamine, it's getting into the brain. Yes, yes. But this MARCoNS thing has been a game changer, whereby
Mm.
it's actually really coming from the nose. Even though
Wow.
even though you consume the foods into the gut, somehow communicating to the nose, and then just fixing that, clearing it, helps a lot with neurological histamine issues. Yeah.
Amazing. I've never heard of that. So you've definitely educated us there. I appreciate sharing that
Yeah, MARCoNS are
important
good.
piece.
Naturopath do the test. Like it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's that this is all part of the mold world, right? That I will next year go and do training in it. It's funny, when I first worked at MTHFR support, these sickest patients that overwhelmed me, I'd sit in on other consults and these people, I'm so overwhelmed, it was all mold. And I was like, I'm never doing that, never. But I can't, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you do histamine and methylation, you are going to see mold because it
Mm.
drives up histamine and it disrupts methylation significantly. Right. So I see a lot of it. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm cognizant of your time. So just a couple of questions and we'll start to land this very smoothly. So in terms of the other issues that you might see in the clinic, do you deal with any parasite issues at all?
No, I kind of am I'm in the camp of kind of the parasites we see, blastocystis, dientamoeba, unless dientamoeba is causing diarrhea. I'm in the camp of they're not a problem.
I'm in your camp too.
Oh, good.
That's good. We're in agreement there.
Yeah. I mean, it was Jason Horlick that said it at a conference years ago, and
Yeah.
I was like, he's right. I was like, he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
I had my favorite patient, Shona, from when I was first starting out. I mentioned her at the beginning of this thing. She had blastocystis and chronic gut issues, and we were just honing in on that for so long, and it's just like
Mm.
never worked. And I remember after that conference, I was like, you got to do the SIBO test. SIBO. She had SIBO the
I'll
whole time.
qu- I'll qualify that. I think the blastocystis and diatomeba story is definitely not worth treating, but there are other types of parasites like the worms. So those ones can be problematic.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't have worm patients. I don't know. I never see them. Look, I'll do the complete microbiome mapping test, the big one, when I think there's a sulfur problem, because it brings up the sulfur ones. And if I'm like, wow, I really don't know what's going on with your crazy immune system. Usually with skin stuff, I want to see like calprotectin and beta glucuronidase and like secretory IgA and all that stuff.
Hmm.
It's funny, I never really see worms.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just not something that comes to my clinic.
Well, people will get the itchy backsides and they
Yeah.
might see them. So
Yeah.
there's
I know.
lots of
It's
people out there with it.
true. They are. Look, I do sometimes have patients tell me about that. Um, I do just give them that the wormwood, but it's just
Mm.
not something. It's kind of like it would be an aside thing of what we're doing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So
No, but I know that they're really I know that they're super common. Yeah.
yeah, the Salcor Paras seems to be the go-to sort of plan. Para
Okay.
one, para two, para three, para four,
Okay.
with a parasite detox, that kind of thing, liver detox, pathway opening, things like that. So it's
Yeah.
maybe something to explore.
Yeah, no, there's always things. It's so funny how things can come in cycles regarding like patient. It's funny, you start or like I started doing MARCoNS and all of a sudden it's like I have all these patients that need MARCoNS, or it was, a few years ago it was just like SIBO after SIBO after SIBO after SIBO. And then I've had like I used to have like so much endometriosis. And then so much perimenopause. And I just things just shift and move. I don't know why. It's just like patients, just different clusters of patients come, but I will now be on the lookout for worms.
Cool. So one final question before we wrap. So what's the being at the forefront of dealing with patients with digestive issues? What is your feeling for the emerging trends as we move to the end of 2024 into 2025?
Somatic work, nervous system work, for sure. What I mean, it's becoming more and more in my awareness for two reasons. Firstly, mold disrupts the nervous system, like on a physical level. I think it disrupts myelin and it causes nervous system dysfunction. Right. So Melanie, my colleague, has been constantly looking at practitioners like the Gupta program, right? And similar around how people need to work on nervous system stuff. And if you look at Gupta's website, it's mast cell activation syndrome, it's chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, it's like POTS, it's all of this is all this chronic inflammation, histamine, mast cell stuff. And there needs to be a nervous system component for that. So we are aware of that because of our mold patients, but we also have a whole bucket of patients that come to us with trauma, childhood trauma, acute, what's more, childhood trauma, and even like things like surgery. We forget that like having surgery is a big deal because we just don't have convalescence in our world. So in our Western society, it's like, get on with it, go back to work in a week. Right. So it's basically this bucket of people, it's mold people and people have had some trauma causing health issues. They need to do the nervous system work. And I must say, I need to educate myself on how to talk about this better. And I am. Irene Lyon, Lyon, is who we're referring a lot of people to for trauma work. I also use some amazing chiropractors in Sydney. They do some special, it's like magic. I don't even know what they're doing, but they're recalibrating the nervous system. When I'm working with someone with gut and trauma, I really require them to do that because they can't get on. It's so simple. They're not in rest and digest. They're in fight and flight. And I say, write this down. I'm not in rest and digest. I'm not in rest and digest. I'm not digesting. My gut's not working because I'm in this constant hypervigilant state, right? And skin's another area where it's really prevalent, is the stress stuff, right? So I am becoming really, I'm just reading books on the nervous system, like books like The Body Keeps the Score. There's another one, I can't remember, it's something about a tiger, but it's looking at how, this is quite fascinating. I find this fascinating. Can I tell this story?
Sure, go for it.
I had a patient the other day, lovely lady in the UK. She had a terrible bike accident about 5 years ago. She broke like the arms and legs, right? She had surgery and then was in rehabilitation for a long time. But she developed chronic insomnia from that. She can't take sleeping tablets, they give her anxiety. She can't take anxiolytic medication or herbs, gives her anxiety. Like, this is so strange. Like, she can't calm her system down. So I researched some books that Irene Lyon was talking about, and there's one book, I can't remember what it was called. I'll have to look it up. I bought this book and I was reading about this. Why does this happen? So animals, right? So if you're in Impala on the plains of Africa and you're being chased by a lion, and you can see this sometimes if you watch those documentaries. I always try to look away, but sometimes I watch. The animal sometimes drops before it's killed. You can see it. And it's called a freeze response. The adaptive freeze response. So the impala is running and you can see the lion hasn't got it yet. It drops. It freezes for two reasons. One, it stops the pain or reduces the pain. Secondly, it's like passed out. If that lion decides to take it to the den for later, it has a chance of waking up. And when it wakes, it mobilizes and it runs. And that action of running and getting away takes the stress away, right? The stress is gone. And it's also an animal, so it runs on instinct, so it doesn't remember, right? So there's some studies done on a few groups of people. One lady, she woke up from anesthetic when she was quite young. And that's so traumatic because she can't move. Her anxiety is trapped in her nervous system. Right? She doesn't need to be sedated with anxiolytics and whatever. She needs to mobilize and get the nervous system out. Another example was these are real life examples. This group of children were kidnapped, and actually, I'm not even sure where, they were left in a cave. There's quite a few of them. I think there's a school class, like 20 of them. For quite some time. It was dark and humid and terrible. The two strongest boys who managed to like get them out, they dug them out and they moved and they used their brain and their body to move them out. They're the only two boys in that class that didn't have long-term trauma because they're moving. It's really fascinating. So just doing simple meditation and calming work is actually not right a lot of the time for these people. So this is what Irene Lyon talks about. This is what this somatic work from really trained practitioners are doing. It's not
Mm-hmm.
suppressing, it's moving. So with this
Mm-hmm.
lady in England, I was like, why is your body not sleeping? Why won't it rest? And in this book, it says it doesn't have, the trauma can be surgery. It can be breaking limbs. It can be surgery. It does traumatize the body. Right. So and she's taken, of course, when I saw her, she's taken so I was like, I'm not going to, she can't, ashwagandha makes her anxious. She can't take herbs. It doesn't work. Sleeping tablets don't work. I wasn't just going to say, oh, take some valerian and magnesium. Like I'm like, you need to just work somehow on the nervous system. So this is why I find it funny where people just get so trapped and the meditation and the yoga is not working enough because it's actually not deep enough. And there are practitioners that are working more on that deep trauma. But it's just fascinating. It's just, I was always like, why can these people not calm down? It's actually because their body doesn't need them to calm down. It needs
Yeah.
to get that energy and move it out.
I'm with you. That resonates with me because maybe like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I did an acting training course, and purely for mental health reasons. And the practices that helped me the most were activities where we were shouting and screaming and expressing the trauma or pain in a physical way, and something kind of released after that.
Yeah.
And it was liberating. And each time we did it, it became less and less. And then another example is doing cold showers. So that's certainly not meditation, but
Yeah.
we know there's health benefits or mental health benefits from jumping in cold water and being shocking the nervous system and
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah.
it's nuanced. So not to say that meditation or yoga doesn't also help me personally,
Yeah. Yeah.
but using the other modalities that are more expressive and more jarring to the nervous system is also seems to have some sort of mental health benefit as well.
Yeah. I think it just depends on the case.
Exactly.
Just who it is. Like some people are just stressed from work, but it's when there's actual trauma, they can't, like meditation makes them worse, sleeping makes them worse, sleeping, even calming herbs make them worse. I'm like, oh, that's a red flag. It's fascinating. I just really I want to educate myself more on this and how to explain it to people. But that's what, I just think I've been doing this for 10 years now. So I kind of know what my herbs do, what my supplements do, right? So I know that. I'm just now listening to people like, is there trauma? Is there stress? What's going on? What else who else do you need to see to help you with what we're doing? And then, yeah, they do. And we get much better results when they're doing that at the same time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, amazing conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the final question I have is, as we wrap, if there was one thing you could do for your digestive health today, what would that be?
I have to say it, meditation.
It's a
Calming.
carving. It's a
Getting
great.
breath work or meditation, getting yourself into your getting out of sympathetic nervous system into parasympathetic nervous system.
Wonderful. Love that.
Pretend you're French and just instead of like eating at your computer, just go and have a nice lunch for like at least an hour. Set the table, have a knife and fork, maybe outside, calm down, eat slowly and mindfully. Like I'm actually serious.
Put the
Yeah.
mobile phone away.
Put the mobile phone away, get into rest and digest. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful advice. Joanne Kennedy, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.